Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Terry. I'm excited to have you guys join me again. And as you can see, we have a male panel this time around. I'm so excited to be sitting down with two single guys that we're just going to have a good conversation tonight. We're going to talk about some things that are going on in the single world that's dealing with men and women, professionals, and just kind of the current state of being single. So first of all, I want to have the guys introduce themselves, and I'm so happy that they're here because I just have to be real. Originally, I had some guys planned, some guys scheduled to be here, and things happened. They couldn't be here. So these guys, just on a whim, I grabbed them, and they said yes, and I'm so grateful that they agreed to be a part of the panel. So just real quick, I want to have you guys introduce yourselves, and then we're going to just start talking. So we'll start with you.
My name is Michael. I've been in the Bay Area for about 8 months now. I moved here from Phoenix. I was there for about 2.5 years. I moved here after I graduated from school. I went to school in Philadelphia and Atlanta, and I'm originally from San Diego, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
My name is Ron Cook. I'm born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I came out in California. I was in the United States Navy. Currently now work for Cato.
Awesome, thank you. Well, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. And we're going to just jump right in. My first question. In today's society, what is the meaning of love to you? In just today's society in general, what does love mean to you? We'll start with you, Mike.
I feel like for me, I'm still kind of young, and I've been through a few very meaningful relationships that were long-term, and where I could legitimately use the word love. Mm-hmm. But in each situation, they've looked very differently. You have the kind of the naive, I just want to be around you all the time, the companionship element. And then you have the other type where it's kind of like, I will do anything for you because I want to support you, and I'm just, it's more of a team thing, and there's just other situations where it's just wild rush, grade 5, raft down on, rapids, and you just holding on, because you don't know what's happening. It's just going crazy, but you're still there.
Right.
I don't know if that was too vague, but I guess it's still, for me, what's really important is like a lot of affection, a lot of quality time together. I think that's really what's most important to me, and I think that has been kind of my most successful relationship, and I still love that person to this day. So,
what about you, Ron? So, what's your definition of love?
Well, I'm old school. For me, I use my father for example. My mother and father been married 55 years. So that's all I've seen, and I've seen how my father sacrificed. In today's society, I feel like people just don't sacrifice for each other. Right. They in it for what they can get out of a relationship, and if things go bad, then they're out of the relationship.
Right.
To me, it just don't sit well with me.
Right.
Like I said, I'm old school.
Right.
I'm in it to win it. And that's just how I feel about it.
Awesome.
To kind of follow up on what Ron said, he said kind of, there's not a lot of sacrifice here. So that's something that I've had a lot of backlash on, because I've withdrew myself from a relationship where there apparently was healthy love, and that could have been for other circumstances.
Right.
Maybe we were in love, but maybe this wasn't a long-term sustainable situation.
Right.
And even though people love each other, that don't necessarily mean y'all good for each other, or that love can just keep it. It's gonna hold it on together. Right. Like I said, I described that wild rafting situation. I don't know if that was going to be the best situation for me at that point in time. As much as I love them, I realized, the other aspects in my life were suffering. Right. So I can't just hold on to that just because we have love. I'm a firm believer that you can find love. Love is almost a function of proximity. So everybody, a lot of people tend to think that, in my view, a lot of people tend to think that love is it's one unique person. But as evidence in the past, we all have been in love before multiple places, in some cases in different cities. So I think it's kind of it depends on your situation. I've been in love before. I'm pretty confident I'll be in love again, and I'll find it again. So I don't think it's just like one person, you know, is the end all, be all.
Right. So basically then what you're saying is you can be in love with someone and it perhaps isn't the right season for that love. Because like you said, other areas, you said something key, you were in love with the person, but other areas in your life were suffering. Yeah. So it wasn't perhaps the right season. So it wasn't even necessarily about the person, but it was just about other areas of your life was suffering because of the relationship.
Right, and
that's a great point.
I mean that's not necessarily a cop out to say like, oh, it's not you, it's me, type of situation.
But it just is what it is.
Fine, it is me. You know what I'm saying, like, or whatever.
Right.
You know, that's kind of what it is, and that's the reality of the situation. I think a lot of times people just don't want to include all the different variables that go into a successful relationship. People want to be kind of like, oh, well, does this line up? Like these three basic elements: job, love, and good family or something like that. And then they just want to run with that and be like, well, why doesn't this work?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But there's more that goes into a relationship that's going to be long-standing.
I think now life is more dynamic than ever.
I hear what you're saying.
That's my today view.
Right. Okay, I understand. And basically, you know, kind of back to what you were saying, you know, that's one of the reasons why your mother and your father, why their relationship lasted so long is because they sacrificed. Mm-hmm. And like you said, a lot of times, and it kind of like ties right into what Mike is saying, you know, sometimes people don't necessarily want to sacrifice or do what's necessary to make a relationship work. And me as a married person, you know, I will say that's what it takes to make a marriage work is a lot of sacrifice. And a lot of times people don't want to sacrifice. It's just all about them. It's all about me. But when you're in a marriage or when you're in a relationship and you're looking to perhaps go down that road to marry or to be married, there's going to be a ton of sacrifice. So you just got to determine, okay, is this the person that I want to sacrifice for? So again, you could be in love with somebody, but it's not necessarily the right season for that love. And it's not about that person. It's just not the right season. So you both brought up some very good, very valid points. Now, this right here is typically a point of kind of contention for men and women because a lot of times women, they like to say like, oh, you know, I intimidate men or, you know, or is there such a thing like do strong women intimidate men or are men like turned off by strong, independent women? And we'll start with you, Ron.
Well, I don't think some men are intimidated by strong women. I feel like...
Could you answer maybe why?
Why? One of the reasons why is men like to feel like they're needed.
Okay.
And when a woman is independent and she makes a man feel, he feels as if she doesn't need him, it does something to a man.
Okay.
It messes with his pride, his psyche.
Got it.
And, you know, and as men, we like to feel needed. We like to feel needed.
Got it. And what about you, Mike?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. Like, I almost feel like this is a cliche rhetoric that's kind of, it's not being dug deeper. I feel like I saw it on Essence back in '97, and people just keep spinning it. It's like the same record. I really don't know where this like whole mantra came out and just like, you know, oh, we just gonna run with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a good one. We just gonna make movies and run with it. We gonna keep going with it.
Right.
So I think a lot of the times, a lot of issues I have with like, you know what I'm saying? Like if there's a woman who faces some type of rejection, then she automatically retreats to this rhetoric. Oh, it must be because I'm strong and independent, without doing some self-assessment or some type of having some self-actualization. Well, maybe I have other deficiencies. Maybe it's not. Maybe you know, even though I am opinionated, maybe that's not the reason why this person didn't accept me, or you know what I'm saying, something like that. But I feel like people get to use that. They say, nah, this is it. You know what I'm saying? It's gotta be it. I was always around black women all the time, and never did I ever feel like, you know, I had to be intimidated by women. I don't know if that's just as a result or function of my conditioning of where I was at an impressionable point in my life, but I don't feel that way. And like, to be honest, I don't really see too much evidence of this topic. So I'm really trying to figure out like where it really came from. Like, maybe it started in Phoenix. Maybe it started in Phoenix.
I don't know. Y'all don't hate competitions. Y'all know I love you.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But nah, I mean, like, I really don't have much experience with this rhetoric.
This whole strong woman intimidating.
No, I know I encounter strong women all the time.
Okay.
Like I believe.
But you're not intimidated.
Yeah, like
exactly.
To me, it's a more attractive feature. Like okay, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like okay, well I feel like we got something here, or you know you got a personality. You're not just like some vapid body, flesh just walking around. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
I like that. And did you want to add something?
Well, I would just say, I don't want to say this. Most women have their stuff together. Probably most of these women here, all of these women actually have their stuff together. And pretty much it take us a while to get our stuff together. And while we're getting our stuff together, we may have a strong woman and she points those things out. As she points those things out, it kind of makes us feel a certain type of way about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And then we don't know what to do. We put up a defense mechanism and then we kind of lash out at you guys because you have your stuff together. You might say something that we don't like for you this old and you don't have your stuff together. You should be a little more advanced. I know some of y'all can feel me on that one, right?
I don't know if I've ever said that.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying though, just to keep it real, that's how men feel.
True. That's real. And you bring up a very good point. Both of you guys bring up very, very good points. First of all, what you said about it's just a maturation thing. It takes guys a little bit longer to get it together than it does for women. And you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of times women, we have it together, you know, a lot faster. And I don't think I've ever said that to a guy, but I'm just thinking about a past relationship, and Lord knows I thought it. Like, okay, you 30, like you need to be a little bit further along. And I have said it, and you know, Lord help me, it could have even manifested itself in my attitude or whatever. And we'll just put it out there, ladies, that you know you're hearing this from two guys. You know, the one guy that said, you know, having a strong woman in front of him, that's actually an attractive feature. It's not intimidating. And then coming from another guy, you know, if you have it all together and you are a strong woman, you don't want to like dangle that carrot in somebody's face like, I got my stuff together and you get your stuff together and blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like, that's not an attractive feature of being a strong woman. I mean, to me, it's almost like insecurity where you're like bragging about what you got and where you are to bring a man down. And it's very important for men to be a man, and you have to let a man be a man, and they are the head of the household. I mean, all of what I do, what I talk about is grounded in, you know, kind of God's way. And God says, you know, it's God, man, and then wife. He didn't say it was the wife and then the man. So it doesn't matter if you make more than him. It doesn't matter about who makes the most money, because at the end of the day, it's both of your money. It's the house's money. So everybody has the benefit of that. So it's not like I got mine, you get yours. It's like it's ours. It's not about what's mine and what's yours. So that's something that we as women, you know, need to be cognizant of, is that we do kind of have our stuff together a little bit faster than men, and it's not to make them feel less of a man, because it is. The guy just said it is. It's a ding on their pride, because men are raised to be the head of the household, and that's God's order. That's His divine order, and that's the way our society lays it out. So when we come as women, because a lot of times as black women, we're even taught that you need to be a strong black woman, and don't let no man run over you, and don't let no man tell you what to do. And I mean, that's all good in its proper perspective, but you have to put that stuff in its proper perspective. And allowing a man to be a man, that's not letting him run over you. You know, allowing a man to be a provider, that's not allowing a man to run over you. So, you know, it's good that women, sisters, are making a lot of money, and in a lot of cases, I even know some myself, where the women make more money than their husbands or their fiancés or boyfriends or whatever. But that's no reason to dangle that carrot in front of their faces or try to make them feel less of a man. So you gotta be real careful with that, because that's like a fine line that, you know, we walk.
I'm seeing like a lot of like these word groupings, like strong, independent, and successful, you know, like these all just seamlessly kind of go together. These can all kind of be decoupled into, you know, different permutations of people. You know, like I don't think necessarily that just because you're strong and independent, that automatically makes you successful in what you do, or necessarily that you strong and independent. Like I think there's a lot of circumstances where people are either or. They not both. Sure. You know, when you have like all these, like when you start seeing things like strong, independent, and successful, I'm willing to call that person a unicorn. I think a lot of times what you see, what we perceive as to be strong,
Right.
is like what you said earlier, is actually insecurity. You know, so there's a lot of push up to the front. It's a lot of facade. You know, almost a barrier.
Right, and you bring up a good point when you say that, you know, all of those things, you know, don't necessarily go together, you know, strong, independent, and successful. I mean, successful, I mean, it's kind of relative. I mean, perhaps what I define as being successful, you know, is probably totally different from you, and it probably has something to do with generation, the fact that I'm a female, you're a male, and just kind of where we are in life.
Right.
So, you know, what I define as being successful is probably totally different than what you define as being successful. But you did bring up a really good point that quite often women will have kind of a hard shell, and I personally think that hard shell might come from they don't want to be hurt. They've perhaps been hurt in the past. They don't want to be hurt again. So what they end up doing is they bring baggage. You know, every time something happens to us, you know, whether it was in our childhood, teen years, young adult or years or whatever, that's baggage. And we bring that into every situation, every friendship, and every relationship. And that's one of the things that I actually talk about in my book. You know, we all need to prepare ourselves. If we want to be married, if we want to be successful in relationships or whatever, we need to prepare ourselves for whatever it is that we want. And we need to dig deep and find out those things that are, you know, causing us to create a shell or a barrier, you know, to having successful relationships. I mean, if you keep seeing a pattern in your life in terms of, you know, for the ladies and the men, the mates that you have or whatever, you keep jumping from job to job to job, you know, you might see a common denominator in that, and you know what, it might be you. It's probably not the other people, or it's probably not your job, it's probably you. You need to like just stop, pause, and just really reflect inward and just see what you're projecting out. Because you brought up a very good point.
The skills have to be balanced in a relationship.
Yeah,
A lot of times when people feel like, how can I say it? When you feel like you have something that another person don't have, and a man has to come up to your level, or a woman has to come up to your level. If the scales are not balanced, if you're going to be in that relationship, you help one another.
Exactly.
You know, and if it's about the money, you got it. If you got skills, a lot of you women out there have skills. If you have skills where you can help your man, help your man. And likewise, if men have skills, help your woman. And if you're going to be in a relationship, you got to help each other. And it's going to be like that if you get married, you know, from the beginning stages all the way to the end. You know, when you get married. Right. So you got to help each other. Right. And we got to stop looking at the thing for, I did this and she did this. Right. And you got to keep it in proper perspective. It's got to be a we thing.
Exactly.
You know,
absolutely. So. It has to be a we. And, you know, you have to be about, exactly like you said, helping each other. Because the Lord, when he created Eve to be a helpmeet to Adam. Because if we, you know, those of us that were brought up in the church or we read the Bible, you know, what does the Bible say? The Lord blessed Adam with everything that he needed. Everything that he needed was right there in the garden. But what was the one thing that he lacked? He lacked companionship. And the Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. So I'm going to create for him a helpmeet. So woman, we were created, whether we like it or not, we were created to be a helpmeet for man. So again, you have to keep everything in its proper perspective, and that's key, what he said. We got to be willing to help, you know. Now, there's another thing if you're being used. Now, you got to use some discernment and some wisdom.
Yeah.
but you know, I mean, because there is a man out there. You have users, but that's in anything. You know, we can have friends that are users, so, you know, we can have that. It can go both ways. So that brings me to my next question. Why are some men so afraid of commitment?
I noticed that black men tend to be, they tend to marry a little bit later than, let's just say, like our white counterparts, or especially our Asian ones. Yes. They marry a little bit younger, a lot younger. And I know from my experience, it's just that we just don't have to commit, you know, at such a young age. Right. You know, and that's not necessarily to be condescending or to, I just think that, you know, there's just a lot more. I think when you almost consider like dating, I read a good article about it when they said you consider dating to be a market, right? When you look at it from an aspect of a market, there's almost no incentive to remove yourself from the market earlier if you can sustain longer games.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Does that make sense, ladies? Yeah. Okay.
I don't want it to be like, my friend says I do this too much. He says like I quantify like emotions and stuff. So, I mean, to me, that's just kind of what it is. Like, I don't necessarily know if we don't have to. I think it's kind of like, if you get in a situation where you're a guy, you're like, the woman that you're with, she's like, hey, I really want a little more commitment from you. And you're kind of like weighing like, well, what am I going to lose? You know, am I going to lose, like, you know, what are my trade-offs here? What are my trade-offs? And then sometimes the guy's he's not really in a position where he's not ready to do it. He's just like, you know, there's still,
I can still date.
I got some time. I can still, you know, I don't think I have the world figured out yet.
Like you talked about how God, he used a woman as a helpmate for a man when he said it's not good for a man to be alone.
Right.
And God has called a man to be the priest, provider, and protector of his home.
Exactly.
And if you're not ready for that commitment, then it can be scary. You know, because at the end of the day, in this marriage, God is going to hold you responsible.
Exactly.
You know, no matter what goes on in your household, God holds you responsible as a man.
Exactly.
And when you really sit down and really think about this kid, this woman, this family, I'm responsible for that, then that's kind of heavy for a man. It's kind of heavy for me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of scary. But you know, it's not saying that we won't do it, but it is sometimes intimidating, especially like me when you've been married before.
Right.
And then now you're going to do it again.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, you gotta think about that stuff. You gotta really, you know, be serious about that commitment.
Right. Exactly.
You know, if you want it to work.
Right. So what Mike said, something that my grandmother always taught me was when you're single and you're putting yourself out there, and my grandmother would always say like, you know, why is a guy gonna buy the cow when he getting the milk for free? And when you said that about like, you know, the whole dating thing, and it's kind of like, what's the trade-off? You know, when you have a woman who might be, I don't know, 28, I'll just put myself out there. When I was, 28 and 26 and 27, I felt like I was like ready. And now that I'm a little older than that, I'm like, I wasn't ready at 28 to be married, and even at 29, you know. So the fact that, and now that we know, guys are saying, you know what, it takes us a little bit longer to get there. So it's almost like, you know, what he's saying is, I have time. But then ladies, I know we think differently because we have a biological clock. And 35 is a magical number for us. You know, it's kind of like, I want to make something happen before 35. So I'm like playing with a biological clock, and guys not so much. But anyway, the point that I'm making is, you brought up a good point where you said, you know what, when you got options and you have time, there's no rush. So it's not that guys are, you're saying, afraid of a commitment. It's just kind of like, why commit so early, or why now? And then it ties right into what you're saying, where you're like, when you're a man and you know your place in the family, you know that you're the priest of the household, you know that you're the man of the house, and when you really have a revelation of what and who God has called you to be, it can be intimidating. Because Ron is exactly right. If the house is crumbling, the Lord is not going to hold the woman accountable. He's holding the man accountable. He's not looking at the woman saying, you know, Tracy or Terry, or why is your household a hot mess? He's going to be looking at the guy saying like, Ron, Mike, why is your house a hot mess? Why is your house crumbling? He holds the male accountable. So it's a huge responsibility for guys.
Free from my depression, put my faith inside your love. Now I'm reaching for my blessing.
'Cause he died and he rose, he's alive, this I know. I'm crossing over, I crossed over, I put the cross over everything.
So I'm free from crying, free from my depression, put my faith inside your love. Now I'm reaching for my blessing.
I'm crossing over, I crossed over, I put the cross over everything.